And Thomas here of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in to this special video as I react to the news that we all heard today that Cole Beasley has requested a trade from the Buffalo Bills to Team B. Wherever he goes, we're going to be keeping our eyes peeled, whether he stays or goes. That does not necessarily mean that Cole Beasley's days in Buffalo are done quite yet. As reports have said, the door is not closed on Cole Beasley returning to Buffalo, but obviously anytime you have a story like this where a player requests to be traded, you obviously know that his days could potentially be done with that said team, and in this case, the Buffalo Bills. I want to hop on here and give you guys just my take on Cole Beasley requesting a trade, diving into that, kind of ripping that up and throwing that back out at you guys as far as what my take is on this recent news, as well as Cole Beasley's time in Buffalo. What is my take, my personal Ryan Thomas take on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast tonight, right here, right now. So let's get right to it. Cole Beasley, okay, 3 years in Buffalo, 3 very successful seasons. Now, statistically, you might look at this year and say, oh, not quite. In comparison to seasons of years past, you'd be right. Statistically, he did take a downstep, a downturn, I guess you could say, in statistics. The numbers were not quite what they were the year before. And of course, this season, more so than last season, I think COVID played more of a factor in 2021 than it did in 2020. I give you that due to the fact that the NFL seemed to be far more strict in terms of their policies, and COVID seemed to be more well-known and run more rampant, at least, in 2021 in certain facets than it was in 2020. It seemed like 2020 was a sheltered year for everybody, whereas 2021, more people were out and about, and the virus took its own turns in 2021 to where the NFL had to react to it. The NFL had to put policies in place to protect the players, and some of the players didn't want to fully comply. Cole Beasley, no doubt about it, was one of those players. That's his right. He can make the choice. It's his choice. Whether we agree with it, disagree with it, those are the choices that Cole Beasley made. And over the course of the season, Cole Beasley was fined not once, not twice, not 3 times, more than 3 times, several times over the course of the 2021-2022 season due to how he did not want to comply with the policies that the NFL implemented. We saw it over the course of the offseason. Cole Beasley very vocal on Twitter in regards to the policies that the NFL wanted to enact. He wanted no part of it. He wanted to walk the walk, talk the talk, and do whatever he wanted to do as he prepared for what was one of many seasons that Cole Beasley has had in the National Football League. All that being said, you shove that, you throw that out there. I mentioned that first and foremost, and then you toss it aside and you just acknowledge the fact of what the player brings to the table. Let's just talk about the player that is Cole Beasley. Yes, statistically, this year the numbers did go down, as I mentioned from the top. But what Cole Beasley represents is not a player that you cut. So many members of Bills Mafia referred to Cole Beasley as a player that you can just cut. Oh, we can cut this player, get $6 whatever million back into the salary cap. It sounds nice. If Cole Beasley was a middling wide receiver, if Cole Beasley was in the last prime year of his career, I wouldn't necessarily argue with that. But Cole Beasley provided and has provided Buffalo and provided Dallas with a value that just doesn't grow on trees, that every team in the NFL looks for. And it's a safety valve for whether it's a rookie, young quarterback or a veteran quarterback. Cole Beasley has been one of the best slot receivers in the NFL for the better part of the last decade. You look at Cooper Kupp, you look at Cole Beasley, you look at Julian Edelman. Cole Beasley's numbers are right there in terms of the slot receiver acumen that he has with those 2 names. And Cooper Kupp, this season, obviously what he did was legendary, had the best year that any wide receiver has ever had. I'm talking in terms of targets turned to catches, receptions that, obviously are high target volumed type slot receivers. Kupp, Beasley, and once at one point prior to his retirement, of course, Julian Edelman. Cole Beasley is as sure-handed a slot receiver as we've seen in the league in recent years. And I think with a player like Cole Beasley, with a few players like Cole Beasley on this team, Jerry Hughes on this team, Star Lotulelei on this team, there are players on this roster that you could easily say, okay, this guy can be cut. We can get some of the cap space back and spread that money out in other areas that are needs on this team as well. The player is not what he once was. He's towards the tail end of his career. Let's just move on, right? And with Cole Beasley, you have reason to say those things as to why you want to move on. He is in the wrong side of 30. He's not going to get any faster. He's not going to get any He's not going to get any quicker as a receiver than he already has shown in the last X amount of years of his career. So all those reasons are fair as to why you might want to send a guy like that packing. But listen, this is all the fans talking. This is Bills Mafia. Bills Mafia has been talking about getting rid of Cole Beasley since the season ended. Actually, I'll go back. Bills Mafia has been talking about getting rid of Cole Beasley since midway through the season. And beyond that, moments throughout last season where Cole Beasley was a distraction, where Cole Beasley tested positive for COVID, missed a big game against the Patriots, and Isaiah McKenzie filled that role and then some. Once you do that and you're a part of the Buffalo Bills, you're no longer quite looked at the same way as a part of the Buffalo Bills. Catch my drift here. Once a player puts himself out of play, off the field, for whatever reason it is, and someone takes his spot and does just as well, if not better than he was, prior to taking himself off the field, Bills fans say to themselves, well, what do we got here? We got Isaiah McKenzie, who looks pretty good. He played really well in that slot receiver role. He's younger. He's quicker. He's going to get quicker. He's going to get faster. He's not even sniffing 30 yet. And he's in his prime. He's in the prime of his career. So all those things, all those reasons are not anything that I disagree with. I've said it myself. It's a fair assessment of the situation. But what is the wrong assessment of the situation? What has made the situation, I think, worse for Beasley, McBean, McDermott, and Bean is that the fans, the Buffalo News, sports writers that have written about the Bills over the course of this offseason so far have basically labeled Cole Beasley an easy cut for this team. And he's not. He's not an easy cut. He holds value on this roster. He holds value to this team. And without that value, you're missing something. You're missing an experienced slot receiver, a receiver that Josh Allen has targeted often in the last 3 years of his career. And you're adding another hole to your wide receiver core, whether you guys feel like you can fill it or not, one way or the other, via draft, via free agency. You're opening up a hole by cutting a player like Cole Beasley. Cole Beasley has value. Cole Beasley is not a player that you just cut. There's other ways of moving on from a player without cutting them. It's trading Cole Beasley. So Cole Beasley has seen the writing on the wall these last few weeks, last few months, since the end of the season probably. He's seen the writing on the wall, and he's said to himself, okay, well, it looks like the writing might be on the wall for me here as far as being cut. I don't want to be cut. I want to request a trade, given what I have done for the last few years for this team. I want to request a trade and really get a grasp on who wants me, who feels like I am a valuable asset in the National Football League. I guarantee you there are at least 5 or 6 teams that will reach out to Buffalo automatically within the next 24 to 48 hours that will tell Buffalo, we will give you X, Y, and Z, or X for Beasley, Y for Beasley, Z for Beasley. You get the drift. Probably a draft choice of some level, right? And yeah, you look at that and you say, if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, we don't need mid-round draft choices. Well, you do if you want to trade up in the first round. That's what you can get to package to move up a few spots in the draft, right? We've seen them do that. We've seen a lot of teams do that over the years. Those mid-round picks have value on draft day to move up. I look at it this way. Getting anything over nothing is better than nothing. So trading Beasley for a 4th or a 5th round draft choice, at worst a 6th round draft choice, is better than just cutting him and getting nothing. what you'd be getting is just salary cap space. I'd rather take the late round draft choice, the mid round draft choice, and getting salary cap space over nothing. That's common sense. But the problem is, with an idea of cutting Cole Beasley spreading like wildfire, I don't believe that was the right idea to have. And I'm thankful that Cole Beasley saw it upon himself to say, you know what? I have done X, Y, and Z for this team. He's done a lot for this team, whether people want to admit it or not. I know in recency bias, we can look at what Beasley hasn't done or what he has done. He's been a distraction. He missed that game against New England, and Isaiah McKenzie filled his role pretty well. Isaiah McKenzie's a free agent. Buffalo wants him back. Isaiah McKenzie wants to be back. He told me that when I ran into him at the Walden Galleria in the Apple Store. And you want to make some moves that make your team financially, I guess, sound. And that's one of those moves. But I think Cole Beasley being adamantly enough that he wants to be traded to where he can pick where to go, Buffalo can get something for him, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I also want to extend the olive branch and not kick a man when he's down, because obviously I think Cole Beasley wanted to be a part of this roster this year, this upcoming season. And we definitely enjoyed having him here when he was performing at his top, the top of his game. He helped this offense tremendously over the last few years. I want to say thank you to Cole Beasley. He had a great 3-year run here. Whether it's coming to an end or not remains to be seen. The writing's on the wall, though. He requested a trade. Usually when a player requests a trade, his days are done with that team. But rather than being a little bit short-sighted, let's say, hey, thank you for the time you spent here. What he did for Josh Allen, I'm sure, was instrumental in terms of Josh Allen's development along the way. These first 3 years of, these last 3 years where Allen has played with Beasley. He didn't have him his rookie year. He did have him the last 3 years, and I think it's paid off in a big way for Allen in terms of how he's able to read a defense and read an offense in terms of finding the open receiver. He was a safety valve, no doubt about it, in the lean years of not having a tight end until Dawson Knox had this emergence this past year. Cole Beasley deserves a ton of credit. I think a lot of fans kicked him while he was down a little bit. Yes, he had his own thoughts on COVID, and maybe he didn't handle it the best of ways. Maybe he did hurt the team in some ways based on his anti-vaccine stance. And that's fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. He's entitled to his opinion, and how people responded to that, they're entitled to their opinion as well. But I'm going to look at it for what it is. He was a talented player for this team. He contributed to this team. He made the team better. He made the team's best player what he is today. So thank you to Cole Beasley. If this is the end, if not, I'm excited to see him back. If he does come back, great. If not, much respect to him for what he was able to provide the Buffalo Bills these last few years. I'm Ryan Thomas. That is my take on Cole Beasley's time in Buffalo, as well as Cole Beasley requesting to be traded. No matter where he goes, he will help a young quarterback or he will help a veteran quarterback and make any offense that he plays in better. That's all he's done, from Dallas to Buffalo to his next stop. I'm Ryan Thomas. Thanks for tuning in. Go Bills.